Hey, everybody, and welcome to
Great.
the HERstory Collaborative. My name is Jen Buck, and I'm your host here in the collab. Now, I'm all about advocating, amplifying, and activating high-performing women, and that's really what the HERstory Collaborative is all about. Trailblazing women who are changing their little corner of the world. Now, my next guest, this is super exciting, is Dayo Akinrinade. Now, Dayo is the creator and founder of the Wisdom app, which is a social audio app that connects knowledge seekers to mentors. She started her career as an IT management consultant at Accenture and Deloitte. Then, driven by the lack of diversity in London's tech ecosystem, she joined the founding team of OneTech, London's largest diversity in startups program, backed by the JP Morgan Chase Foundation. Subsequently, after spotting a gap in the market, she went on to found Africlick, a cultural dating app targeting 1 billion Africans globally. In 2019, she was named in the Financial Times top 100 most influential ethnic minority leaders in tech. Her projects have been mentioned in publications including Forbes, City AM, and the Evening Standard. So everybody, please help me welcome to the collab, the creator and founder of the Wisdom app, Dayo Akinrinade. Welcome, Dayo.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. This is so cool for me because I am such a fan of what you've created. It is such an impactful, intentional space, and I absolutely love it.
Oh, do you know what? Like, it's only week 2 of Wisdom. So I just want to say thank you for the feedback. Thank you for coming on board and giving us a chance. New apps launch every day. But to your point, the feedback, from you and so many of our early people on the app, I just think Wisdom, it feels special. It feels like a very intentional community. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've done some incredible things already. And I love that you're getting into a space that already feels like there's a gap there. I know there are, these social apps that are audio driven that are popping up, but I feel like there's for me a hive mind feel about wisdom, that people are coming together to share solutions. And that to me feels really good. When I'm looking for something, I have a very intentional place to go. And I can literally go through this library to find what it is I'm looking for and even ask that expert about, what it is that might help me. So it feels very hive mind to me. Does it feel that way to you?
I think absolutely in that community or a social audio community. And it's a community of helpful people that have knowledge, that want to share the knowledge and to give back. And in essence, the way I describe wisdom, in a nutshell, it's a social audio community, and we connect people who are experts or coaches or mentors. We connect them to knowledge seekers. So we connect experts to knowledge seekers. That's the whole sort of raison d'etre. And then in terms of taking decisions, and I'm taking decisions every day, which we are, in terms of what features shall we ship, so many things. Our main metric is conversations that matter. Mm-hmm. So everything we do, everything we design, we can take it back to saying, for example, for you, Jen, as a user of Wisdom, how can we help you have conversations that matter to you? So to your point, the intentionality is there as well, in terms of ensuring that people are spending quality time on Wisdom, not that thing that I think, sometimes a lot of us with social media, as a creator, you may go onto your Instagram and you had an intention of going on. And then sometimes 20 minutes later, you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Yeah. And you're like, why did I open this up again? Right. And that's not the case with Wisdom. It is, everything about the design, it is very intentional. It is all around sharing knowledge.
Yeah. And I have found, and I know that you know this already, but maybe some of the people who are tuning in have not actually gone and downloaded and experienced the Wisdom app. But for me, it feels, along with being intentional, it feels intimate. And in
Yeah,
a world that has
absolutely.
been very loud, and then actually very isolated because of COVID, all of a sudden I feel like we just found a really magical space here that allows us to have really intimate and real conversations. And whatever this is, you have somehow broken through the noise. And that's what I love.
Wow. And I love to use the word intimate because, to your point, of course, now there are so many mediums we communicate over. And I feel with social audio, it's voice, it's conversation, which I think is, we could say that is probably one of the oldest forms of human communication. It's talking. And I think, yeah, people are liking, this isn't about being behind an email or a text, which can be misinterpreted. I think audio is intimate.
It is.
I think it's very authentic.
Yes.
It removes misunderstanding because you can read the person's voice, sort of the intentionality. And at the same time, with wisdom social audio, we remove the pressure of the video in terms of
Yes.
how do I look? And then now in these times of working from home, people are like, how does my background look? I mean, Jen, your background looks beautiful, by the way, and very serene. But a lot of people are like, my home isn't Instagrammable. How am I
Yes.
gonna, go live or getting hair done and things like that? And so yes, I think people are loving that with with wisdom, being a social audio app. They're not as tethered to the phone. You can have it on speakerphone or maybe have it in your ears, wander around your home, kind of do other stuff, but you're listening and the conversation is flowing because of course I think some people, to your point, because you spoke about talks, and I like to say that in wisdom we have a library of talks. So maybe to those that may be thinking in terms of what is so the sort of what is wisdom, but in essence it is a social audio community and people will use wisdom one of two ways. You may decide to land onto wisdom and to your point, Jen, look in one of our topic categories, find a talk and have a listen and take the wisdom that way, or you'll go to wisdom live and actually have live conversations and exchange ideas and yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I have found it to be something that, for me, kind of brings me into a settled space because often when I'm in social media, because I use it as a tool for business, I'm very, very focused on how I use social media. I find myself settling in and literally sitting on my bed and just being. And that's a very different feeling for me with social media in general, because I feel like I'm in a learning space. I'm in a cup filling space. It feels like I'm getting something more than just using it as a tool. And that is what's been really kind of a surprise for me. My brain has exploded on this because it doesn't feel like I got to do. I got to post, I got to respond, I got to, check my statistics, I got to do it. This just feels like I settle in. And I love that then when I start a talk, I've got that recording. So I can even send people there, which I have, to say, hey, I actually just spoke about that. If you go over to my wisdom, you can see the topic called and people can listen, so it just, I don't know. I just love it. And I think that you're onto something really special, not because it's, I mean, yes, it's new and yes, it's all of those things, but it feels different to me.
No, I think that, that's great, and I love it because you're very naturally talking about the features, and for those listening in, and people may still be thinking what is wisdom, but in essence, yes, it is a social audio app, it's a social audio community, but the design around wisdom was with the intention of helping experts and coaches and giving them the tools to first of all share their knowledge and also to take questions from the listeners, which is the interaction of wisdom.
Yeah.
So as a coach or an expert or a speaker, you can open up your phone, go live on wisdom. You choose, obviously you'll choose a title for your talk, and you also choose the topic areas that your talk is about. And our topic areas are very broad. So anything from parenting, tech, nutrition, life coaching, wellness, there's so much there. And
Yeah.
so as an expert or a mentor, you will start your talk, you will choose the topic topics, about what you want to talk about. And as people are listening in, if they have a question or an opinion, they can tap the guest spot of the talker and arrive on the spot as a guest. And
Yes.
so, in essence, the wisdom will provide the function to almost take a cue of contributors or people who question. And then we have the timer function, where if you are giving a talk, you will set a predetermined time for how long you want to have a guest for. And that could be anything from like 3 minutes, and we do now have it all the way through to an hour. Because what we found is that uh, experts want to use wisdom in different ways. Some people want to have longer form conversations. So, like I did an interview on wisdom today, and I set my timer to 30 minutes, and I said, we're going to have a 30-minute conversation. Whereas some experts may just want to have more 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And so, what we're having is, experts are coming in, they're speaking, and people are queuing up and they're coming into the queue and having their little slot of time with the expert. And what we're finding is the timer keeps the conversation moving.
Uh-huh.
It removes, sometimes it can be a bit awkward to end interactions or end phone calls. But, with wisdom, everyone can see the timer there.
Yeah. Yes.
It's ticking. And once the timer is off, you get ejected. I use the word.
Yes.
You get ejected from the guest seat. Of course, you can re-request, to cycle back up.
Right.
And I think that currently wisdom is all the functionality within the app is free, and we would certainly always keep a big proportion of that free.
Yes.
But in terms of looking at our top mentors within the roadmap now, we are looking at functions around how will our top mentors monetize on the app? How are we going to build in structures so that they can offer sort of paid one-to-one mentoring, but directly over social audio without needing to use the app? So I think with having the timer in there, it's already setting a great intentionality and precedent in terms of saying, for example, I may be able to today, I want to know about Jen and how she has built her sort of various businesses and structures and, kind of is established as a thought leader. So what I may do, first of all, is, land on wisdom and say, I'm interested in, I don't know, marketing or thought leadership. I'll find your content. I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to follow you. And then the next time you go live, I will get a notification. I'm going to dive straight in because Jen is speaking to ask the question, and then that's great. And then afterwards, I might be like, I want to pay for a one-to-one with Jen and really kind of unpack and be like, this is what I'm thinking. And that's going to be like a typical use case that we want to see within wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And I think that it's a tool that a lot of us obviously would jump on as mentors, right? Because it does allow for that space in between what we're doing and, the monetization to come together. And it is seamless and it does make sense. And I do love that. So you said that when you created Wisdom, it was really about making sure that you're connecting the content creators, the coaches, the leadership experts, thought leaders, whatever it is, with, those who want to learn. Was there anything more that was important to you when creating this space for learning? Was there anything personal that you were trying to achieve that maybe is not being seen in other spaces?
Yeah, I think that's a great, yes, it was, so one of the founding missions, the founding mission of Wisdom is to democratize access to mentorship and to democratize access to knowledge, because I believe that access to knowledge should be a right rather than a privilege.
Yeah.
And in terms of, because people also ask, where was the idea of wisdom? What I say is it wasn't one single light bulb, but it was maybe a series of challenges and at times dissatisfaction where in my career as a woman in tech, there have been just various times where I needed a mentor. I needed to tap into, when I say wisdom, because wisdom I think develops over time, I needed to tap into somebody who had walked the path before me and could offer their wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't able to get that within the companies I worked for, because oftentimes if you need a safe person to speak to, it's probably not at your company, because you might not, want them to know. I'm thinking of changing jobs. You don't ask somebody in your company. You need somebody experienced within the wider network.
Yeah.
And I also worked out that I think LinkedIn isn't great for mentoring. LinkedIn isn't great for connecting to people who you don't know, who aren't in your network. You need to have somebody within a couple of degrees of your network to make a connection on LinkedIn. And so what I found at the beginning of my career, and actually as I began to do more work and get more profile, I found personally, and people around me found that I would frequently get requests on LinkedIn from a lot of the time, like girls or women who were interested in tech, or they wanted to get into tech. Sometimes they were Black girls as well, saying that, well, there aren't many people that look like me. And so I did start to mentor, but ultimately as individuals, we have limited capacity. And what I would found was that my DMs or my direct messages on LinkedIn would just be getting full of requests. And I didn't have the capacity to look in. I didn't have a way to filter those requests for kind of quality. And so what ended up happening, which I've sort of had other conversations, is experts on LinkedIn will end up helping people who are within their immediate network, i.e. it's a warm introduction. If I ask you to speak to somebody because I know them, you're going to filter them out of your inbox and be like, I'm going to help that person. So what happens is that people end up helping people who are within their network. And that is how the knowledge and the privilege stays within networks.
Yes.
So a big intention around wisdom is saying, well, how can we use tech to sort of, let's cut out this warm introduction. How can I get, because a lot of mentoring now, sometimes we say mentoring, getting knowledge, it doesn't always have to be like a phone call or a coffee now. If you've pre-recorded talks, for example, with the best of Jen, then I can tap into your wisdom anytime, like even while you're sleeping, people can be listening to your knowledge and benefiting from it. So that was the sort of the intention.
I love it. And I do a lot of work in the DE&I space. And so I am constantly talking about access, and a lot of people who are white don't realize the natural privilege you get with the invites to the golf club, the invites to a concert, the box seats at a game. And it's my cousin, my uncle, my friend's, grandfather. There is this link of access that has very distinctly blocked access from those who are not within the white community. And when I have audiences that finally start to see that, we can really start to unpack what truly that privilege is. And it is around education. It is around, the access into spaces, conversations, rooms, that you're gaining that entree because of someone who knows you, someone who mentored you, someone who brought you in on their tail. And so it is important, and it is really valuable to create space where everybody, sort of like you said, across the board has this access and availability to learn, to build relationship, and to move their needle forward. And I think that that's something that's not being spoken about as much as it should be. And it's often the thing that makes my audience's lights turn on. They get it because, yes, you got it too. You did it for your son. Your neighbor did it for your daughter. People start to see that. And then they realize, this is definitely part of that white system that keeps the race unequal.
Well, I think absolutely. And I just to say, to commend you for kind of being a voice. And as you said, working within the space and bringing awareness, because sometimes they're not easy conversations to have, and people will react differently, maybe sometimes feel like defensive or something, like that. But and to your point, I think wisdom, it creates a great opportunity in terms of, I do believe with so many people, they want to give back. They want when they sort of become aware of systemic inequity, and it's almost like, well, people are like, what can I do? And I do love that now, for example, I can say, well, make a profile on wisdom, make some talks, maybe hold, we're calling it audio office hours now. We can go push out on your social media, go live, people are going to tap in, and you're going to be able to have conversations and share your knowledge with people that, to your point, otherwise would not be able to get the access. And oftentimes that lack of access, as you said, it's not because of laziness or kind of, a lack of want or trying. It's just sometimes so many barriers. And to your point, I know within my introduction, you mentioned the OneTech program. So when I transitioned from working within management consulting, which is a very sort of structured enterprise technology, into startup, I spent some time working on a program called OneTech. So in fact, I was on the founding team of OneTech, and it was London's largest diversity in startups. And the backstory, they have a tech fund, and actually anyone who is in London who is building something great in tech, it's something called match funding. So if you raise 100K for your startup, and we'll also put in 100K, and we'll match the funding. So it's a way of boosting the tech ecosystem. And a few years into the fund, where there's this mandatory reporting, so they're reporting back to the government and to the mayor, here's how we spent the fund, these are the types of startups we funded. And what they found was that they were consistently funding a particular archetype of founder who was like a middle class, white male, university educated, which then opened up a wider question in terms of saying, well, the diversity of startup founders accessing this fund should also represent the diversity of London as a city. And that could be, for example, do you need to have gone to university to start a startup? You shouldn't, perhaps. In terms of socioeconomics, were your parents are professionals from a household? We also looked at gender because there was underrepresentation of women and underrepresentation of ethnic minorities. Mm-hmm. So while working on the program, that was also where we realized that a key blocker was lack of access to mentorship. Mm-hmm. Because you may have the idea, I want to start a startup, start a business, do something. But if you cannot access people from within your target industry who are further ahead, how do you really get to know that you're solving the right problem? Sometimes I'm thinking, from a tech startup B2B perspective, if you can get that meeting with somebody within your target industry and they can tell you, these are the problems that are keeping us up at night. If you can build something to solve this problem, well, we're definitely going to buy your product, or we're going to give a pilot. But what was happening with founders was they didn't have the access to have those conversations. So they would just start building. But then sometimes if the thing you are building is not going to solve the right problem for your kind of target market. So that was also one of the sort of crystallizations where I was like, lack of access to mentorship is a challenge. And we did start a mentoring program through the OneTech program as a work stream, but it was time intensive. There was a lot of labor. We had to do both sides of the market. So wanting to be mentored, the mentors, scheduling, do your diaries align, feedback afterwards, is this the right mentor? It was a lot of work. Yeah. And then I did the wider research and found out that a lot of mentoring programs do have a high rate of failure, like they're difficult to put together. So this is also where I'm thinking, well, with wisdom, we have our experts on the platform. And then because as soon as you start to talk on wisdom, that talk is automatically recorded. So what that means is you don't necessarily have to catch it live. Anyone can come in at their own time and listen afterwards.
Yeah. I love it. I just think it is bridging so many gaps. That's what I'm loving about it, and I love all of these pieces because that conversation is most important to me in life. The most important conversations I have every week are within this DE&I space. That is sort of what drives everything I do. But of course, as a speaker, a content creator, a, coach, whatever. It's like you just are bringing it all into this space that matters to me. And I just really love that. So thank you for your big, brilliant, beautiful mind, because I think that you're checking all the boxes, and that's important to me as a consumer,
No, I think it's amazing. And at the same time, and of course, we do have our sort of very altruistic aim with wisdom. It's so many layers in terms of there is the giving back. To your point, it is also around helping experts monetize their expertise as well, and exactly for content creators to understand that right now you're probably planning out your content strategy and the channels, and now people YouTube and Instagram. And I do think the future with social audio is alongside podcasting. It is going to be a drop in social audio. This is also going to be a key route to market for individual creators. And for me, not just individual creators, I mean corporations as well. Consumer banks should be going live on social audio to give us tips around financial management and how their products line in. I really do believe we're going to see social audio use cases now pop up onto so many platforms and so many different sectors. I think absolutely this is just the beginning. And people like you, we're the pioneers. Well, it doesn't feel that way because we're in it, but it's still at this sort of very innocent early stage of adoption.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you what's kind of fun for me. And if you're not, depending on where you're watching or listening, right now we are broadcasting live on the Wisdom app. We are doing the live podcast that is, broadcast all over the world. And this is a television show that is being broadcast. So we are already starting to seamlessly bring things in together. And what it ultimately does is creates a smaller circle, right? I mean, we can throw our net out further, but it brings more people in. And that's what matters to me, bringing more people in, connecting more people, and utilizing all the tools we have. And I love that wisdom is something that might even keep me from podcasting and broadcasting the way I always have, because I might be able to use this app in place of something I've already been doing. And who doesn't want to eliminate one piece that's extra, right? If I have something like this that can hit live and record it at the same time, then I don't frankly need a podcast platform or whatever, you know what I mean? So I see the value.
Yes, and to your point, to explain further for those listening in, if you haven't tried Wisdom already, as soon as you go live, your talk is automatically recorded. Yeah. And once your talk finishes, and it's saved down to your profile permanently. If you keep it there, you can delete it if you wish. But if you do keep it there, you can also download your talk onto your phone. And of course, then you have the file, you have your content, and you can repurpose it across other platforms. And absolutely, I think a number of podcasters they're working out different ways to sort of merge or infuse wisdom into their podcast. So, for example, some podcasters are recording the podcast, then they are doing a live segment on wisdom because they can have guests drop in. Whereas before, I think to get a guest on your pod, you would be emailing back and forth and finding them. So they're sort of recording a live segment on the Wisdom app and then joining it to their podcast. Some people are recording their full podcasts on Wisdom. So I think it's really exciting. There's a lot of different ways that people are gonna use it. We've had a dating and relationship expert, Carmelia, and she thinks that the time function of wisdom will be great for matchmaking and speed dating. So I can't wait to see what's going to come up.
Yes, totally. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I have to tell you, and this is so random, sadly, I lost a bunch of people, like 7 people in my life. And this is family and closest friends in 5 weeks. So it was just heavy, heavy, heavy. And all the things that you can imagine come with that. And one day, last Thursday, within your first week of being live, I'm scrolling through, laying in bed, just enjoying listening to all these conversations. And there was a conversation, or there was, let me say this, a woman broadcasting that said, ask a psychic medium anything. And I did. And it was one of those moments that I never, first of all, thought I'd be doing that, right? Especially not in social media, not with other people listening, not with a stranger. Like there were so many things that were not what I would normally be doing in that kind of environment. The information this woman gave me was so specific. It was, I mean, I was crying, if that tells you anything, because it was, there's no way she could have put all this together. But I say this to you because that moment turned my process of grief into a new direction of hope, of optimism, of I'm not alone, of, that I have to live, I have to be, I have to, all, but it was that conversation on your app that I never would have thought I would have jumped into. And I didn't even know what to ask, to be honest with you. When I got in the conversation, I just said, I've lost so many people. I don't even know. I don't know what to ask you, but this is so compelling. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. And we were off to the races. And I say this because I've been using it for learning. I've been using it for connecting. I've been using it for my marketing, but I haven't been using it for healing in that respect. And I'll be darned if something wonderful didn't happen.
Hi, what? And then she said, it's that sometimes that serendipity of dropping a social audio where you may not have connected with you may not have gone to Google and said, I want to meet a soothsayer or a spiritual person, but it just came across at the right time.
Incredible.
My word.
I know, right? And that's
and you said you didn't have to say that much. She just got the read.
Yep. It was incredible. It was incredible. So if everybody listening and viewing right now has not downloaded the Wisdom app, make sure you do that, because the value of this app just keeps kind of hitting me in different ways and different, directions. And I'm truly loving it. I just really feel like there's something different, and it's not noisy. Some apps can be a little bit noisy. This feels very intimate and very intentional. And for me, that's what I like. I like digging in and going deep, and I really, really think if you're tuning in, you need to get on this app for sure. And all the people listening on Wisdom right now, I know you're loving it as well, and so I would love to transition, if you're okay with this, and ask you a couple of questions that I think, because we have spent such a cool amount of time digging into like your purpose and where you've been and what brought you here, I'd love to ask you some quick sort of speed round questions. And in these questions, I like to just throw the questions at you. You just tell me what comes to mind. And it just gives all of us sort of a better perspective of who you are that maybe isn't so, I don't know, formal, in our first set of questions and whatnot. So are you cool with that? Can I throw about 10 at you?
Perfect. Go ahead. Not too fast, but I'm here.
Okay. And if you don't have an answer, just say, I have no idea. Like there's zero pressure. Please know that. All right. So if you had an hour to spend with a woman from history that has impacted you or influenced you greatly, and they don't have to be alive, they can be anyone from history, who would that woman be for you?
So for history, they need to be not alive?
Well, I mean, it kind of, the idea is yes, like they've passed on, and this is someone that it could be recent history though, someone that's had a strong impact on you that you got to spend, an hour with, asking them all the questions of your heart and mind.
Would it be okay if I choose somebody from my family?
Yes.
I would love to go back on my mother's side to my great grandmother, because she was, I mean, aside from being a wife, she used to weave silk, and I don't know, get the pods from the back garden and weave silk, and then she would go on travels and make sort of very elaborate mats, and she would sell them in sort of in different provinces around West Africa. And then the story goes that she she was so busy with her travels and her work, she went to her husband, my great great grandfather, and she said, "We need to get a second wife because I'm so busy traveling to do my business. We need somebody back at the homestead to keep." So she also then traveled and brought back a second wife for my great grandfather, who then sort of, she filled in and she did all the home stuff, and then she kind of went traveling. And so this is the story I know, but I would be fascinated to kind of ask more, because I'm just a couple of generations away from polygamy, and of course this is being with myself being British. I'm also Nigerian, so there's that other cultural aspect, and there a lot of the stories are passed through verbally, they're not transcribed. So that's a conversation I would want to have.
Oh, totally. Oh, I think that's fantastic. Yes, how interesting. Wowza. I went to Nigeria about 10 years ago, by the way.
Oh, really?
I did. I spent 2 weeks there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and I know we've interrupted. Maybe we'll come back after the rapid fire or offline, because I would love to hear, of course, why and how the experience was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Went to Uganda after that for 2 weeks. So yeah, I did. I was gone for a month. Greatest trip of my life. And we will for sure. So let me ask you another one here. What is your favorite place on the globe that you have ever visited?
That is such a difficult question. But I would say there's a town called Oaxaca, which is in Mexico, and it's a gastronomic region. So the coffee, the food, the chocolate, but then also the people, and then the ancient ruins, and it's just like in its own little kind of time warping zone, and very kind of traditional, and you get lost there. So yes, I would say Oaxaca.
Very cool. Very cool. And being in the States, we are not far from, going in across the border into Mexico. And I've done a lot of traveling there. So I just, mentally took note. So that's good to know.
Oh, yes. If you haven't, absolutely. And I think, as you said, it's not one of the obvious, hotspots or whatnot. But yeah, there's so much culture, as you said, just in between a lot of the towns and cities of Mexico.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So if you were given £1 million to give away to a nonprofit organization, which organization would you give that to?
So, gosh, I think I don't think the organization I would like to give it away to, I'm not sure the organization really exists anymore. To my understanding, through the 80s within the UK, there was Saturday schools. And from, I guess, what we would call, again, I know public-private, if I say the public school system, the government school system, what would happen was that communities got together and held Saturday schools. And what they would do within the Saturday schools is cover the things that I think weren't covered within mainstream education. So they would teach the children around history, culture, identity, kind of like a sense of like belonging and community. And that was something that, for some reason or the other, it doesn't happen anymore. Schools, just to supplement, because I think the schools can't do everything, and there is that sort of extra gap, and then particularly life skills. I'm very big on, I think, at least in my experience, most schools they don't teach tax, savings, good habits, and those are the life skills you actually need, to get through. That's some of the wisdom that, and it depends if you were fortunate enough to grow up in a home where there were good financial habits and life habits, then you learn by osmosis because it's happening around you.
Yes.
If you don't, then people may grow up with certain habits, the overspending, the hoarding, the not wanting to sort of, some people maybe just put a blinder. Don't talk to me about money and finance, because that was the situation. So yeah, it would be something around the Saturday school.
Very cool. So what is your favorite book or podcast? It can be one or the other, but do you have anything that, when you think about your favorite, do you have one or the other that you could share?
Oh gosh, yeah. So, I'll go for the podcast then. Although, okay, book or podcast. I'll go for the podcast. So yeah, my favorite podcast is, and actually, it's weird. It's the first podcast I ever listened to. In fact, look, the first time I ever heard about podcasts, I have a podcast story. It was I was doing a part-time master's while I was working, and the university I was at had a podcast festival. In fact, it was the UK's first podcast festival, maybe 2017 or 2018. I didn't even really know what a podcast was, but there was a festival. So I just went to the festival.
Yeah.
And then the Brilliant Idiots podcast. So I think that's Charlemagne and I don't remember the second his name, but Charlemagne and his co-host. They were live on stage broadcasting the Brilliant Idiots at this festival. And there were different podcasts happening on different stages. So that kind of just became my favorite podcast because it was the first one I ever became aware of. And then I went back, I kind of listened, and I was like, yeah, pods are great. So yeah, I would say the Brilliant Idiots.
Yeah, I'm totally going to look it up. I'm a pod junkie. I've got a huge library. I spend a lot of time, people put music on in the background. I tend to put podcasts on in the background.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to look them up. Thank you for that. So what is one quirky or wacky fact about you that not a lot of people might know?
Okay, so I used to teach a fitness class at my gym. There's a chain of gyms called Fitness First. I don't think you would have it stateside, but you have like other big chains of gyms. Yeah. So you get the picture in terms of So yeah, it's like a global gym chain, and I used to teach. It was like a dance fitness class. And yeah, I traded it off at the time. So I didn't really want to pay the gym membership. So I said, I'll come and teach a class and then you can give me a free membership. So I was much younger than them. So
I love it.
That's maybe a fun fact.
That is a fun fact. That's a very fun fact. One of the things that people always laugh at is that with me, one of my fun facts is that I have an extra rib on my left side. So I know I'm like Eve or something, right? Or Adam times 2. I don't even know, but I've got an extra rib in my rib cage. So there you have it. There's my weird, wacky fact. I think I lost.
I have so many questions.
No, right?
When did it become known?
When I was like 10 and I was at the doctor and he was, it was a physical for sports. And so he was, for some reason, like around my waist. And I don't know if you did this when you were little, but little girls, I'm boys, I shouldn't say just girls, but we all suck in our stomach and try to do like that wavy stomach thing, right? As little kids.
Okay, yeah.
I couldn't ever do it. Yeah. I couldn't ever even get the concave stomach thing happening because I have this extra rib down here. So I remember him doing some kind of sports physical that I had to go through, and he was down at my waist and he goes, wait a second, you have an extra rib down here. And my mom, of course, was like, what, and he said, well, it's not as rare as you think. And he said, technically, even though the rib feels like it's down here on her, it's actually, and he came up here, he goes, her extra rib is actually up here at whatever the top part of near my clavicle is. It's actually up there. And so everything is just sort of down lower, but it's an extra rib. Yeah. I wish it gave me extra powers, but maybe that is the answer to my powers, right? My magic. I got you speechless.
I'm really thinking.
I know. All right, let me ask you a couple others here. What's your most treasured item that you own? So a thing, not necessarily like family or people, but what's your most treasured item?
Now, if you had asked me before the pandemic, it would have been a handbag.
Oh, I'm not going to.
It would have been a handbag. It would have been my classic black Chanel flap bag. However, post-pandemic, and the fact that my bags have all just been in storage and not been used. If you'd asked him before the pandemic, it would have been that. Now, I'm going to be very honest and say nothing comes to mind, because all of that wardrobe stuff, it's just been sort of filed away. We're kind of working from home, not bringing that stuff out. And where I used to be quite like, you have some kind of nice things, and don't borrow my. I'll tell our sisters, and I'm like, keep them with my. Now I've become very like, oh, it's okay. So I'm, because I really thought it through in terms of our treasured possession. And yes, I would have a pre-pandemic answer. I would have said that particular handbag, because I was very excited. I think it was there was a show on MTV called The Hills, which was set in LA with Lauren Conrad. Enjoy the familiar show, kind of like a cult classic, right? And Lauren had the black Chanel bag, which was, I think, traditionally not really a young person's bag.
It wasn't originally.
Made it for young people. So because of Lauren Conrad, I was like, I need one of them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I actually love that answer, because I think that this pandemic has done a lot of sort of fading away of what we thought mattered most. And while I don't want to minimize the loss, right? I've already told you I've gone through major loss too. I do think that there's this, this sort of hidden wisdom that's come out of it, in that we don't need the things that we thought we did. And I'm right there with you. Like, I've got beautiful bags that are in their bags. They're cover bags, right? And they're not being used. And I've got great shoes, beautiful shoes that I used to, because shoes and bags are my thing too. I haven't worn a pair of heels in 19 months, and it just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So I'm with you.
Sometimes I think the other day I sort of go and look, okay, you're still there.
Yeah. They're still there. They're still there someday, right? Oh, all right. So you're going to be a huge star. You're already a very, very sought after, thought leader. We know that, obviously, for what you're creating, what you've done, what you have pushed forward. But imagine you are now on 60 Minutes in the States. Imagine you are now walking into a huge event, an arena with 100,000 people in the audience, waiting to hear your wisdom, right? What song are you going to walk on stage to?
Okay, so I think that's going to be anything from DMX's first album, because he has the hype music that gets you hype and gets you like revved up into sort of fight mode. So that's what it would be.
Good answer. Yes. All right. So what is one big thing that you want to accomplish in the immediate, relatively immediate, maybe in the next year? What's one big goal that you have for yourself, or that you want to complete,
Yeah, so I mean, I'll talk about, because everything is front and center with wisdom now, and I want wisdom to be in the popular narrative. So when somebody has a question right now, I think if you have a question, you go to Google, and I think with Google you get a lot of information, not necessarily knowledge, not the how-to. Maybe you'll go to YouTube, or how do I do something? Yeah, I want wisdom to be just at the top of people's minds, so that when they do have a question, it'll just be like, well, tap into wisdom. Oh, have you checked? Well, you know about this? Have you checked wisdom?
Yeah.
I want wisdom to be that.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I hope that happens for you as well. That's when when something is really hit, when we are now using it as a verb, right? We're using something that is traditionally not a verb, but we're now verbing it. And so I get that. Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I would love that for you as well. So here's my last question of the sort of juicy speed round questions. When I'm really, really old, I hope to see ... Finish that sentence for me.
Oh, I think when I'm really old, I hope to see, and I'm gender biased, one thing to speak around women. I want to see less genderization in terms of how children are raised, because I do believe that one aspect that really drives a lot of the inequity between genders at the moment and sexism. There's a number of things, but I do think one of the aspects I would love to see, and it might be a bit controversial, but it is the removal of genderization. So where oftentimes young girls are still being socialized from so young to be, sometimes to put themselves second, boys will be boys, girls should kind of be quieter and less assertive. And I do see a connection between that and perhaps less women on boards, because we are sort of socialized a certain way, and no offense to anybody who buys lots of pink and just gives them lots of pink and things like that, and dolls and whatnot. But yeah, I want to see less of that. And I suppose alternatively, the flip side as well is for I suppose for young boys as well, they also need to be allowed to play with the things that they want to play with. Sure. And express their emotions and be healthy, so they can just be I just think a bit more equity and a bit more kind of a comfort there, and less of this whether we want to talk about the sort of the toxic masculinity or the way girls are socialized a certain way. So yes, that's what I would like to see more, kind of more freedom for kids from when they are very young to just really evolve into themselves, not necessarily the box of what people believe they should be.
As a woman in tech, did you find that you were either literally limited or just sociologically limited? Girls don't go into tech, girls don't study IT. Did you find that to be an inhibitor for you that you had to constantly break through?
That's a really good question. I would say for myself, no, but I did attend, all of my schools were just girls. And that was an intentional choice by my parents to try and avoid that, because it does tend to be, I believe, within mixed schools that it can be like girls do this and boys do this. Whereas if it's just a girls' school, then that school wants to get good results across the board on all subjects. So they push everyone into sort of equal ways. So I say it wasn't a factor there. Maybe the first day of my degree, computer science, and we were about 400 people and like 4 women in like the whole place. So that was at a point where it was just like, whoa. I was like, whoa, what kind of what's happened here. So that was, and then, but she said it's getting better and better now. So I would say I was never kind of dissuaded, but then I think that was just very specifically because of the spaces that I was in.
Yeah, I have friends of mine who live in why can I all of a sudden think of it, Silicon Valley. And they are coaches who work with founders, CEOs, in terms of strategic direction and, leadership coaching, that kind of thing. And these are women who work with them. And it's so disheartening to hear, one, about how few female founders we have, but 2, once they have these brilliant ideas, how hard it is for a female founder to get funding. And those are the fights that we still have to fight, because we can't be bringing another generation of children into this world that are having to fight this fight. We can't. And so I'm heartened by what I see with these highly aware parents that are raising their kids, that are pushing the envelope and asking for what's appropriate in their families and for their children. And I'm hopeful that we're going to see more women stepping into these spaces, but ultimately it still comes down to what we started with, that access. And not only getting the access, but also being able to be seen by someone who's aware enough to recognize that there is no difference in intelligence. There's no difference in creativity. There's no difference in ability. And it is important that we have that conversation very regularly, because we've got brilliant women out there with brilliant ideas. And unfortunately, these very white male run banks, I'll say, at least for the States, are not funding these women. They're not funding these projects from women of color. And really important that that conversation is had. So I'll just throw that out there. I told you, this is the beat of my heart, these kind of conversations.
No, that is so amazing. And I think absolutely. And the more women we are going to get, I mean, if you look at the area of female health and femtech, it's so far behind where it should be, because we don't have more women being promoted into those spaces who know our bodies, who can design things that, you know, that are going to work for us. So I think, yeah, we're all going to benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dayo, we have come to the end, and I am so grateful for you. I want to just give one more encouraging word about anyone listening, viewing in, tuning in. Get yourself on the Wisdom app. This is there. It's something special. It's all I'm going to say. It's something special. It's different. It's intimate. It is settling. It is wise. It's evolving. And so, Dayo, as the creator and founder, I have really enjoyed this, but I'm also super grateful for you on so many levels, for being here with me, for creating this space that's already giving me something that no other space is. And that I love. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. And of course, just so we can ensure everyone has the information and the resources, which will no doubt be linked when we post. But if anyone's listening in and you head to wisdom.audio, that's where you can find our website, or in the Apple Store, if you search for Wisdom, we're there. Android apps do matter, and we are working on the Android within a few months, because we have been getting questions about that. And we're also working on our country expansion as well.
Great. And I love the logo that you have, which is Albert Einstein with the headphones. I mean,
the hair.
Brilliant. Yeah. And then the background that you have, like in the sort of almost easily overlooked, you know, the black and gray up top. That's also Albert Einstein. I just love it. There's so much, and it's such a pretty app. And I can tell it's designed by a woman, by the way. All the color, the way it moves, it's very fluid, it's just very appealing. So props, lady, props. Yeah. Well, listen up, everybody that's tuning in. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But as you know, I am doing these every single week, and you can find us on every single platform. When it comes to podcasts, we are the HERstory Collaborative. We are also in 50 countries, the television show, so you can tune into us there. And you can find me on the Wisdom app at Jen Buck. So have a great day, Dayo, and everybody listening, we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.